Eleanor, you're here.
Hello.
I'm hiding in the woods and you're at home, and we're going to have a juicy conversation. I'll never forget our walk down the Toronto streets, and you were like double the height of me. So I was like, it was a slow run. It was a slow run for me.
It was awesome. I knew, to quote Anne of Green Gables, that I had found a kindred spirit who enjoys early morning walks, early morning power walks. I'm all about them.
Yeah. It's like, meet you downstairs. I'm all about, okay, so this is where the conversation is going today. This is kind of leaning into that. You and I both have, the online space the internet is a beautiful thing, and it's a blessing and a curse. And so we see this anti-hustle culture, and I have found that people have swung from one end to the other, right? They're like, oh, I burnt out. Like, I can't, I'll do less. And then they're not doing anything. And then they're wondering why nothing's happening. But I think you ride the line in the middle well. I'm not going to use the word balance. I don't believe in it, but I'm just curious from your perspective of these women who are powerhouses who want to create a life they love and all the things. What have you found, and what do you see with the women you're working with?
I think that the pandemic was probably one of the most significant shakeups to how women are working globally. And what that feels like for so many women was massive burnout. We know during the pandemic that women were disproportionately impacted by anxiety, by stress, by mental health problems, like all kinds. So much they were the rope holding it all together. And what I really saw is that there were a ton of women who really burnt out. That's continuing. And to your point, the sort of the pendulum swung to this collective agreement that we don't want this hustle culture that's permeated so much of the world of business. But the pendulum swung so far where, to your point, it's like people are afraid of being burnt out. They are afraid sometimes of having actual structure. They misinterpret what it means to be disciplined. And to me, to have true freedom means that you create structure in your life. I mean, you and I were talking about how we're both sort of early to bed, early to wake up people. That takes discipline and structure to make that happen. The discipline isn't going to bed early, and that creates a structure whereby you are able to be well rested and have energy. But I'm definitely seeing women who are struggling with, what does it really mean to not be all caught up in the hustle? What does that actually look like? If I'm working hard, is it a bad thing? If I'm putting in a couple of weeks where I'm working a ton, am I letting the side down? So I'm seeing a lot of confusion.
Mm-hmm. I see a lot of even before they can give themselves permission to go into it. So the woman who identifies as like a working woman, whether she is the business owner or she's in corporate, she identifies as like a professional working woman. I see her challenge as leaning towards the burnout. And then this other side of like, it's always like this double Dutch game. Like, you're like, okay, am I going to jump in? Am I going to jump in? But this addiction, who was I saying yesterday? I'm like, no, it was something else, but I'm like, oh, that's an addictive drug. This all or nothing attitude, not having the discernment to know, okay, it's time to stop. Or you know what? Yeah. I'm not going to be available for the next 2 weeks. I'm hyper focused, and then we can go do this. And then I will have the space to do this. So how do you begin to train yourself to do that? Like, where do people start? I hate asking for tips and tricks because I think it's bullshit, but it's like, where do you start?
Actually, I have a 5-step formula.
Oh, wow. Yeah. 5-step formula.
5-step formula. Exactly.
Get it done in a weekend.
That's right. I would say, honestly, one of the most profound things that I have learned in my life as a working woman, or as a woman who has a mission and has a vision, and and has people that she loves, is that my ability
requires work, by the way. Sorry to cut you off, but I think we're all working towards something.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I do think that all meaningful things require an investment and a showing up energy, And when I used to not really see that pool of energy within me that fueled my ability to show up and be present for the things that I care about. I didn't see that as a precious resource. I didn't see that as an energy source and an inner reservoir that I needed to focus on refilling day after day after day. I didn't realize that in order to provide that kind of output, whether it is showing up for clients, being present for my sons so that they feel my presence and they know that I care, being present for my husband, being present for my soccer team. They don't want to show up at a game and I didn't play because I just didn't take care of myself and was exhausted. Like that pool of energy needs to be refilled at twice the rate as it's depleted. That's the rule, right? Like, so I used to sort of try to get by on just enough. Yeah. And I really thought I only deserved just enough. And what I have found has been that true sustainable growth, whether it's in my personal life or in my business, has come with that like 2-to-1 ratio.
Okay.
I need twice as much. Yeah.
I think that itself is like a mind-blowing thing, right? You're like, oh, well, I can just recover, right? I'll recover this weekend, or, oh, I'll take next week off. Also, I don't actually think we're talking about time. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
We're not actually talking about time, and people think in time. So what does that look like to you when you're like double down twice as much? What does that mean to you?
Well, to me, it means, for instance, that pretty much every moment of my waking day is accounted for in some way. And that means that I know there's time where I'm doing nothing. There's time where I am going for a long, slow walk in nature because I have some calls or a podcast interview in the afternoon. And I know that in order to be able to show up here and be sharp, listen, I'm talking with Heather Chauvin, that I know that in order to show up in this way and keep up with you, I need to have restocked my well first. So I think about output. I don't think about it in terms of time. I do think about it in terms of the output of energy. So, are you creating something? Are you working on a project that's tricky or demanding? Are you investing in a relationship? Maybe you have like a teenager and it's kind of challenging at the moment, and that's going to take a ton of energy from you. So how are you doubling up? And for me, it's very practical. It's like I take a bath every night with Himalayan salts or Epsom salts and essential oils. You know what I mean? I am like sweating every day to actually really make sure that everything that doesn't belong, all of the things that came up in the course of a day where I'm having tremendous output, that all of that I'm able to release. And so when I go to bed at night, it's just me.
I love that.
Like return to myself. Yeah.
I'm always asking women, like, how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel? They state the feeling. And then I hear, but I'm so logical. I'm logical. I want to feel productive. And I'm like, productivity is not a feeling. I want to feel in control. Feeling in control is not a feeling, right? So what do you say to someone who knows they need to do this? They know they need to double down, but they're still in that side of their brain where they're checking the boxes. Like, I take the walks, Eleanor. I eat pretty good. I'm drinking the water. Why do I still feel like all over the place? Why am I not able to gain that presence?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. I haven't thought of that before. I think the first thing that comes up to me is that what you're dealing with, and I've been there, that what you're dealing with in that case is an earlier evolution. So when I think about us as women value evolution and growth so much. And there is a stage in our growth and development where we value ourselves primarily through what we accomplish. And I think many of us have gone through that, where we are valuing ourselves because of what we're accomplishing. And then we get to a place where we understand we've accomplished all these things. And this is like a classic part of the heroine's journey. She's accomplished all of this stuff. And she gets to the top of the mountain and she realizes, oh, this doesn't feel like I thought it was going to feel like. And that is the call where for a return into yourself, to value yourself for who you are and to grow from who you are, not just from what you've done. And so when a woman says that to me, what I see is a woman who there's a call to evolve and she's not there yet. And so I think, she's just not. And so it's about awareness. I think it's about an awareness around that. It's about having a conversation about what it looks like to be a next level leader who impacts and influences through who she is, not exclusively through what she does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's no one and done. There's no, strategy. Like, yes, there's ways of being, and everyone in their books and planners will tell you all the things, the leaders, but it's within yourself. Like, you have to be able to do these things and ask yourself, how does that feel? What else is it that I am not looking at? What actions do I need to take? What conversations do I need to have? So let's shift this now to, okay, we're doing this. Let's go to leadership. Yesterday, I was talking to a room full of women who are all in corporate. And I asked them, how do you want to feel? And, teaching them my energetic time management process. And of course, at the end, everyone's staring at me like a deer in headlights. And I was like, what was your biggest takeaway? And one woman's like, I am so logical. Never in my life did I ask myself, how do I want to feel? And all of them were sitting there going, but how do I control the other people? How do I do this? How do I do that? And I thought there's a disconnect here from seeing that how you show up as a leader, right? These are women who have teams. How you show up as a leader actually influences other people. So can you talk about the bigger why and impact of why even doing this work is important?
To me, it's about profoundly transforming business culture. So, up to this point, like really since the Industrial Revolution, but actually since the Agricultural Revolution, most economic growth has been at the expense of the environment. And I'll never forget being at this conference years ago where there was this brilliant Aboriginal woman speaking. And she said that in her culture, they believed that the way you treat the earth is the way a culture or society treats the earth is the way that they treat their women. And so I think it's very profound. And when we look at all of the struggles and the challenges, I mean, these are pretty existential challenges that we're looking at in terms of things like climate, even AI, global conflict. I'm absolutely 100% a person who reads the news, and understands like what's going on. That's not going to mess with my chi so much that I can't even read the news or open a newspaper, by the way. But for me, when I look at this, it's not just, I think it's what we're looking at, and the opportunity here is a profound time to transform business culture with a much more feminine imprint. And I think as women leaders, what we bring to the business world is a sense, is this holistic approach. What we bring is deep empathy, deep care, and an ability to understand how those work with business results. And so when as women, we are not living that within ourselves, it becomes difficult for us to seize this opportunity to transform business culture the way that the planet actually needs for us to do so. So, I think that's why this is so critical right now. And it's not a blame thing. So if you're one of these people who are like, I've never asked myself how I felt, I feel weird doing it. You're not alone. I think this is something that we're going through collectively, and we're all figuring out together what it looks like, how we do it. And I think women coming together and developing solutions together has been how we have done things forever, so we're all a part of it.
And it's so, oh my gosh, when you just spoke, I'm like, that's the clippable. That's the clippable. It's like it opened my heart a little bit more. It's like, yes, like there's so many layers to this. And when we as women begin to realize that we matter, right? It's not about checking things off the list, but we truly matter. We are the core, we are the foundation. And when we heal, everyone else heals.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's the core of all of it.
It's the core of all of it. It's the core of all of it. You know that, and I can't remember who said it. Was it Gloria Steinem who talked about the personal is the political? Maybe it was Betty Friedan, like some luminary, in the feminist movement. But how we treat ourselves as women, like when a woman really understands and prioritizes her well-being, truly prioritizes her well-being, that is feminism. That is transformation. That she starts to impact people around her. She starts to generate change. It's not just about doing things outside. It's about doing things inside. I think that's, it's key. It's so key that I think we collectively understand that putting ourselves first and prioritizing ourselves is a gift to the planet, basically.
You're fucking welcome. Like that's
right.
Fucking welcome. That's all I say to people. I'm like, you're fucking welcome all the time. Like, you're welcome I showed up. You're welcome I did this. And what are you going to do to contribute? Like, we're all working at this together. And I think there's so much conversation around the all or nothing, or the masculine or the feminine. And there is beauty in collaboration. There is beauty in understanding. And I saw an interview that you did. I don't even know his name.
Connor Beaton.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Men's
and what did that conversation take away for you? Because I'm at this phase in I'm saying my personal life, but my boys are getting older. And I'm like, this is not about me screaming like, I deserve space. I deserve space. One, it's me talking less and actually just taking up the space, or saying I'm going to do this, or like honoring it. It's not about yelling.
Yeah.
But watching my boys become men, that's a mind game as well, because I'm like, there's not a lot of space for who they need to become in this evolution as well. So just how do you bring both together?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so I have teenage sons too. Well, one in 16 and 12, and I'm watching them grow up. And, again, I think it gets back to women evolving and our desire to evolve. And I've really asked myself what world they're growing up in and what values I want them to have. And, for me, the work that I've done inside the feminist movement and corporate feminism and all of this has not been to create a matriarchy. It's been to create an inclusive culture, where everybody is valued, including boys and men. And, things like, we talk a lot about things like toxic masculinity, but I think what's happened is that we've started to refer to all masculinity as toxic masculinity. And so you're constantly, as a woman, it feels like you're constantly fighting something. And I agree. I don't feel that way anymore. I did, but I don't. Mm-hmm. I feel like, and I think that's also very much about embodied power, kind of like what we're talking about. When you truly value yourself and you truly know yourself, you understand, yes, there's times where I need to stand up for something, but I don't need to prove myself. And I also don't need to shout. I am what I am, and you're fucking welcome.
Yeah. And you don't. Go ahead. It's actually, I took it from someone else.
It's so good.
Sarah Dean. Her program. You're fucking welcome. And I'm like, yeah, you're welcome. It's really about showing up because you're changing people's lives. But I
Yeah.
think the conversation we're having, as soon as you said like fighting, my brain went to like conscious parenting because I'm like, if I can see there's conflict happening, I'm not like making myself bigger towards the conflict. I'm actually softening and I'm like, I'm here when you're ready.
Yes.
And yeah, it's a softening, and you expel so much energy when you're trying to prove yourself. But when you just become, you're like, oh, I see you're not ready to have that conversation yet. Let me know when you're ready. I'm here.
Well, and I think it gets back to that wellspring, that inner resource that we're talking about. You know, again, when we really value it and see it for what it is, we don't waste it or just let it splatter all over the place. You know, you use it. It's a resource that we can harvest and refill and take care of and nurture. That, you know, and certainly not to be wasted for folks who maybe aren't ready to be having these conversations.
Yeah. I just think there's so much power and movement in as you become and embody, like that's how people are like, how did you do that? How did you do that? I'm like, you need to take the action you don't want to take to become the person you desire to see other people being. It's a being. It's not a doing. And when you be that, the world responds differently. People respond differently and you get more done. It's way more productive.
Way more.
Yes. So Eleanor, where can you also have more of these conversations on your own podcast? And where can people find more of you? What are you up to these days?
So I have a podcast called Anchored Intelligence, and people can go and check that out. It's all about leadership, business culture, strategy, and deep thinking in those areas. So that's a good place to start. And then I'm on all the social platforms.
I love it. And you got a new puppy?
I got a new puppy, Jessie. Oh my God. Life-changing. She's so cute.
I love it. I'll be watching your puppy vibes on Instagram. And I just always appreciate conversation with you. You are wildly intelligent, and I just feel like my mind blows open. You get me to think about things differently, and I think that's really, really important. So thank you for being you.
Thank you, Queen.